Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And right now, we want to hear your story. We want to hear from you on the podcast. So if you've got an interesting story to tell, go to letsgotennis.com/my story. You can type it in, you can say it into your phone and send us an audio file. You can record yourself on video. However you like to tell a story, just tell us a story. We'll enter you in a monthly giveaway, and you might have your story shared on the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. Today, this is 10 Minutes of Tennis with world-renowned tennis coach Justin Yeo, Australian in Puerto Rico, and we are talking about the split step. Now, the split step is super important, as all the kids say these days. Going to put super in front of everything if you care about it. So it is super important, and I want a definition from you, Justin. So split step, what's the definition? And then we'll get into the conversation.
I thought it was dope. Like if I've got a good split step, it's dope.
Yeah, wrong generation.
Oh, okay. So, okay. It's super now. I love it.
Super. Yeah, we're super excited to have this conversation. Yes.
Super split step. Well, super split step. Split step is so critical for the reason of timing of everything. Timing to get to a ball, timing to recover, timing to get ready for the next ball, timing to get to a better decision and make a good tactical option, timing to take advantage when you should take advantage, timing to defend. I mean, think about all the things that have to happen. It's all because of the split step. And instincts-wise, I see a lot of people tend to have, you can watch their face, you can watch their head move, you can watch all these things that they instinctively, you can see they have got great perception on the court, but if their split step timing is off, that's wasted. So split step can sometimes just be fixed by just getting the right timing. Sometimes it can be fixed because they're like, I am split stepping, and they're jumping 1.5 inches off the ground. And by the time the ball's already hit, they're still on their way down to the court. So people they're like, oh, I'm split stepping. I'm like, yeah, watch your head. Look how much you're moving around too, right? So there's a lot of exaggeration. There's a lot of things that need to be clarified. I haven't actually told you this one, but this is a critical part to the split step that I totally would have remembered on the court, but not when I'm sitting at a screen. But on the court, some people do say, I'm split stepping, and they can't move. And it's purely because they're split stepping with their hips too wide. And because whether their generation or they're just their gender type or their age, there's all these, our hips, I call them the happy hip spot. And you got to know where your happy hip spot is, otherwise you can't respond in a split step, right? So anyone that's trying to be Djokovic is crazy because they don't have that hip range, and it'll actually make their feet flatter and make their split step harder. So I didn't cover that one, but that's, again, anyone wants to know where their happy hip spot is, put 2 feet in the middle, move them up and down, jump up in the air and land. And as soon as you land, that's where your hips like to be. So that's a real simple one for you to help you learn that, to learn the split step.
I like that a lot. And to back up even further, to say, what is a split step? Because someone new to tennis might say, well, that's great. Now I know what the split step is for, but what is it? I was looking at definitions, and it says there's an anticipation movement, which means you need to be initiating before your opponent hits their shot. And there's the timing that you talk about, which is before they hit their shot. But it doesn't tell you what it is. And a split step is just a little hop. It's leaving the ground and bouncing on the balls of your feet. You're on your toes. It's a little hop. Some players do it with both feet. Some players, you got the big step and then the split step, and you've got different ways to do it. But it's a little jolt of energy is how I picture it, which is when I land on the balls of my feet together in most cases, let's say I'm at the baseline, then, and that becomes relevant because we're going to talk about going forward next. But when I do that split step, I do that little bounce, that little hop. It is now, as you say, before. So we talk about the timing. We do that before. I want to land before my opponent hits the ball on the forward swing is what you're going to tell me. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I always say the coaches should be doing it every single class, even when they're just feeding balls.
Yeah.
And every time you throw the ball in the air and you're about to forward swing, your student should be timing their split step, adult or junior. It means even every single time they hit a ball, the habit is this, the habit is this, the habit is this. And whether you feed from the net or you feed from the baseline, the timing is still the same. It's when you're about to forward swing, boom, forward swing down, forward swing down. And I like to say, don't use the word toes, use the word balls of your feet. Because toes is too hard, right?
Most people know what we mean when we say on your toes. We're not ballerinas. We're not actually landing on our toes.
Yeah, but a kid can get that confused.
Okay.
Because a kid tends to have really good range in their feet. So they're like, Coach, I'm on my toes. But they're leaning forward now and they can't engage.
The little kid. I worked with a lot of kids. I've never seen that.
Right. You want to feel engaged. You want to feel engaged. A great way to teach them engagement, and even adults as well, is you get them in the ready stance and get them like into a real solid ready stance, and you shouldn't be able to push them over. If they're engaged in their legs, it's really hard to push a player or push a person over. And that's where they learn engagement of the split step, because in the split step, you want to feel engaged to go, to ready, to fire, and if you're not, then you're really not in a split step. You're just basically hopping. Split step is an engagement to go whichever way you want.
Yeah, and we've had a conversation recently, not you and me, but I've had with somebody else about watching tennis on television and how valuable it can be if you're a tennis player. Now, I might watch football or soccer on television, but I don't play either of those sports, so I'm not watching to learn anything. But as a tennis player, I can always learn something by watching television and watch all of those players, the men, the women, the juniors, everybody on television, the college matches. Those are fun to watch too, because the energy level is fantastic. But every time somebody else hits the ball, there's a split step.
Yep.
It's like when I go visit a high-level academy, a low-level academy, it doesn't matter. You can watch 20 courts of kids just bounce, racket back, hit, bounce. They're doing what my wife calls the tennis dance. And it is just that split step every time. And you've got everybody doing it. But if you go watch a social match, go watch a social league match with a bunch of tennis courts running, you don't see it nearly as much.
No. And look, if you want to watch it on the TV, put your hand up. I always say it. Put your hand over the upper body of the player on the TV. And just watch. It's just there, and then boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's all the time. Yeah. And the player that's usually tired, one of the first things they do is their split step gets slower, or they get in their heels, or they get too vertical. And when all that happens, the other player on the other end is just attacking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the split step is a real critical element. I always say too that I don't think the word discipline gets used enough in tennis. I say to people, like, they'll get 3, 4, 5, 6 balls in, and I'll be like, okay, the first thing you need to say to yourself is discipline, right? While you're in the rally, instead of going, oh yeah, oh, it's like, no, come on, one more, right? And discipline can fire you up in all different directions if you understand what discipline means, but
discipline in this case, get it right every time, not just the first time and then forget later.
It just makes you dig a little deeper and get a little mentally stronger and tougher, and builds a bit of belief that you usually wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's a really cool one. And the other one on the split step is we've seen the sport evolve, and the speed between racket to racket, because of the strings and the balls and the power and even the athleticism now. They're hitting the ball harder than ever. And Vic Braden, now, rest his soul, as one of the best that ever actually looked at it in a science part of tennis. And what he was describing is that the ball from racket to racket is too fast now for us to get from baseline to service line to be able to attack a volley and then go in, which is hence why we spent more time back on the baseline and the game became a baseline game. But what we are seeing now is people coming to the net to try to shorten the point, take the ball on the rise again, and the sport has evolved. But what's evolved as well is the split step. And the split step now, if you notice, the players use, they tend to stick on one leg as a split step, and then they can actually drive in on a diagonal, which if you split step behind the service line and then push off into a diagonal, you can actually be inside the service box to hit your first volley. And if you can watch the players do it, you can actually record it and try and do it yourself. But it's a lot of practice on being able to split step on one leg versus two legs. And when you do it, you get used to going, I need to go that way, so I'm going to land on this leg and push off. I'm going to land on this leg and push off. And it's technically the split step becomes two steps versus one step. And it allows a player to get to the net with the speed between racket to racket. So practice that.
That's great advice. I love that concept. And what I would suggest is if you're going to go try this, we're going to say, do try this at home. Normally they say, don't try this at home. We want you to go try this at home. But I might make a suggestion, and Justin, let me know if you agree with this. Try it without a tennis ball first. Just see if you can do it without chasing a tennis. We don't want you to fall over. We don't want you to feel ridiculous. But we do the tennis dance with the kids all the time. Shadow swings, things that you can just remind your body to get it right. Do that little step, and then hit that first volley. See if you can do it without a ball first.
Yeah, you can do that. The hard part about that is just the ball is forcing that step to happen. So, you have to work on as the ball forward swing, right? As I'm hitting a forward swing, I'm going to land on one leg and push off 1-2. I call it 1-2 because if you think one, you're like this. If you think 1-2, you move forward and you volley on the move. So big part of this is not just the split step and moving in, but being able to volley on the move versus split step and lunge. You're lunging off one leg. So it's, we're seeing a lot of training. I can go on the Instagram and everything, and there's all these players on one leg, doing one leg plyometrics everywhere. A lot of that has got to do with this movement.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Justin, this has been our 12 minutes of tennis. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. We'll see you again next week. Thanks, mate.
See you guys.